Welcome to Career and Leadership Real Talk, the no-nonsense guide for ambitious managers who want to have more impact and progress their career. I'm Pamela Langan, a job search coach and expert CV writer specialising in helping frustrated professionals land the jobs and pay rises they know they deserve.
And I'm Jackie Jagger, a leadership and mindset coach specialising in helping newly promoted and new to role leaders to avoid the dickhead trap and lead with confidence. Between us, we've helped hundreds of leaders and managers to find new roles, take ownership of their careers, and handle the challenges that job searches and leadership responsibility inevitably bring. And now we're joining forces to share with you what we know has worked for our clients.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. Today, we are talking about confidence because we know this is one of the biggest challenges that ambitious professionals face in progressing in their career. And we've just run our Career Clarity Challenge, and we found that confidence was one of the biggest things that held people back there. And also it comes up quite often in the Career Club. So what we wanted to do today was unpack confidence myths and see what people can do to really change their mindset around these issues and how to overcome them and feel more confident in their job roles and when they're thinking about progressing in their careers too. Jackie, I'm going to come over to you and say, what is the first myth? What is the first thing that we hear from people when they're struggling with confidence?
This is just going to be such a good episode because there are so many of these that we could have included, and we've had to refine the list because we could have been up to about 23. So we've had to refine it back to 6. And the first one that we're going to be talking about is the myth that I should feel confident, the myth that I have to feel confident before I can tackle a new project or before I can go for a promotion. So it's making confidence contingent on feeling ready for whatever the thing is. And the problem with that is that it's normal to lack confidence. So if you're in that place where you feel like you should feel confident all the time, you're going to spend your life disappointed because there are plenty of times in your career where it is normal to lack confidence. And particularly when you were talking about career progression and that opportunity to go for a new role or to step up and be promoted or to tackle a challenging situation within your role. If you haven't done that before, you've got no basis on which to build your confidence because you've got no evidence to prove to yourself that you're already capable. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do those things. And I think that's the real danger with this myth is when you feel like you should feel confident and you're waiting to feel confident before you do something, it just becomes a self-perpetuating cycle where you hold yourself back, waiting for confidence to magically arrive like a bus. And it doesn't. And you keep yourself smaller and stay stuck and stay in roles that you don't need to stay in because you're waiting for confidence to happen first. And it's got to come the other way around.
Yeah. And that also, I think, links in nicely with the fake it until you make it, because that can really affect people as well. Because if somebody's lacking in confidence, the first thing people might say is fake it till you make it, or that is like what we're conditioned to think, isn't it? When actually it's not about faking it until you make it. It's about taking the action so you get the experience. And then the confidence will come. And just when you were talking about confidence will turn up like a bus, I was thinking, actually, when you start taking the action, that thing where all the buses come at once, I feel like that is what happens when you start taking the action without even realizing it. You'll be building your confidence. So all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, wow, I actually feel good doing this thing or going for this promotion or whatever it is, because you've started taking that action. So I think that's really important as well. So when you do feel that lack of confidence or you have that wobble, it's about thinking, okay, what action do I need to take? Because I'm not going to get that confidence until I take some kind of action.
Absolutely. Action is what allows you to get data and feedback and learning. So when you start to move in a direction, when you start to take action, then you build the understanding of whether what you've done has helped you to go in the direction that you want to go in. So when you apply for a job, then you find out whether or not you've got an interview. If you get an interview, you then find out whether or not you've got the offer. If you are going for a promotion, you find out whether or not you've got it. When you get to that point, you've then got more information on which to base future action. Yeah, it's completely normal to lack confidence. And I think what's really important is just that recognition of you're not meant to feel confident all the time. It's okay for confidence to ebb and flow. It's okay for confidence to be higher at some points and lower at others. And like you say, fake it till you make it is such bad advice, because in fact, that is calling yourself an imposter. That is saying, I am going to fake it. And the advice I always give instead is to act as if. So you are not trying to convince your brain. Your brain is smarter. Your brain knows that you're not at that end point yet, but you can still act as if you are a successful whatever, as if you are going to get the job. So when you act as if, you're not trying to convince your brain that you're something you're not. You're reminding your brain that I can take action despite a lack of confidence. And that is a massive game changer for lots of people that I work with.
Yeah, so we are basically busting the myth that you have to feel confident before you tackle new things. And I think the key thing here is to tell yourself, I do not have to feel confident before I do what matters. But when I do what matters, I will feel more confident. So we're all about the action. So that's the first myth busted. So what are we going to look at next?
So the next one that we've picked up on is the impact of criticism and negative feedback. And we see this all the time where people are hesitant about exposing themselves to the possibility of criticism and negative feedback because they worry that it will destroy their confidence. So there's this belief that if I get criticism and negative feedback, my confidence is going to be reduced. And my argument would be that is a choice. So when you ask for feedback, or when you are offered, gifted feedback that sometimes you may not have asked for, sometimes that feedback is useful. Sometimes there is data within that feedback, information contained within that feedback that can be helpful to you. And sometimes it's other people's opinions or judgments. And you get the choice to listen and consider and decide which is the case with any individual piece of feedback. You get the opportunity to assess the merit of that, to decide whether or not it's helpful to you. And if so, take something from it. And if not, move on with your life. You don't have to allow other people's judgments or criticisms to damage your own degree of confidence. That's a choice. And it doesn't feel like a choice always. It can be really hard. And I get that I'm simplifying it massively, but I think it is really important for people to start to recognize that actually I don't have to listen to that. I don't have to allow that to damage my level of confidence. And I can seek out feedback and ask for a critique if there might be data there that will help me and be of benefit to me to act on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back now to like some of the criticism and negative feedback that I got early on in my corporate career. And honestly, I can still feel that sick feeling in my stomach when people gift that lovely feedback. And a lot of the time it is just their opinion, but it is being able to take that on board and separate it. And that was a skill that I really had to work hard to develop, because I used to take it so personally and I would beat myself up. I would lose sleep over it and everything. It's horrible when you feel like you're busting a gut to do a great job and then somebody's going to criticize you or give you negative feedback. And sometimes, a lot of the time early in my career, I didn't actually know how to do things differently. I didn't always have the right mentors in place. I didn't have I didn't have the support at home because people didn't understand the job that I did. Nobody'd been in a senior leadership role in my family. Like, none of my friends were in those roles. So I found it really difficult. So if somebody criticized me, I would take it on board. And that was it. I would really beat myself up, feel bad. And when I started unraveling that, that's when I started separating it into, is this someone's opinion? Is this something I can work on? Do I actually need to do anything with this? And I think just thanking people for their input, whether it was gifted, whether it was asked for, whether it was good, bad, whatever, it was like, thank you for giving me that time to do that. And then figuring out if there was anything useful in there. And sometimes there was, and sometimes there wasn't. And sometimes there's stuff that probably made me want to cry, but it was about recognizing that and then doing something with it. And to be honest, it did make me a stronger person and a stronger leader in doing that, because sometimes it was about then saying, actually, I don't agree with that feedback or with that criticism. Can we have a chat about it? And taking all of the emotion out of it. So I think there's definitely benefits, isn't there, of doing that?
There really is. And it's not easy. But I think that point that you've just made is so crucial. It's often the case that we try and avoid, because that criticism or negative feedback is or feels like a judgment on us. And it points out the gap between perhaps where am I now? Where do I want to be? So that was my case, where I wanted to be the finished article. I wanted to be really great at my job and for everyone to think that I was brilliant. So anybody criticizing me or pointing out gaps where they didn't perceive that to be the case was hard for me to take. When I was able to acknowledge and accept, I don't have to be the finished article, I can be working towards it, and it's okay not to already be the whole full picture, then that for me was a real game changer, because then it was a case of, now I can explore this and consider, does that feedback help me to get closer to the finished article that I'm seeking to be? Or is it just someone's own individual view? How widely is that view shared? Do I want to explore whether other people also perceive that? And I think the other thing as well is that when you're really nervous of criticism, you don't ask for feedback, and you actually cost yourself the positive feedback that you could be getting. We've done an episode on how to ask for feedback that will actually help in your career. And if you become skilled in getting feedback, then you can reduce the chance that it will be just that random opinion. You can get information that's more specific, and you can get information that's actually helpful. And you also will often get unexpected positive feedback. You will get the opportunity to understand, what do people value? What do they see as your strengths? So in trying to avoid that criticism and negative feedback because you think it's going to destroy your confidence, you're actually not helping your confidence in the way that you could, because you're missing out on the opportunity to gain the positives as well.
Yeah, and I think you just absolutely nailed it there with that thing around being the finished article. You're never going to be the finished article. Like, nobody ever is, are they? So there's always that development and that need to move forwards and to learn new things. And I think as soon as we think we're the finished article, that's where we're starting to drop balls and things won't run as smoothly, because we take our eye off the ball. So I think that was a brilliant way of explaining it. So if people are feeling that the criticism and negative feedback could destroy the confidence, so they're totally avoiding it, trying to keep as far away from it as possible, what is going to be a more helpful thing to do?
So I think a more helpful thing to do is to be prepared to listen, to decide whether it's helpful, and then to choose whether to act on it or let it go. And in essence, that's the point that you made about it's detaching from the emotion of it and focusing on the logic and the rational side of it. So not easy to do, but really helpful, because you can gain so much for your career by being willing to listen and by detaching from the emotion that comes with it.
Yeah, I think that's just a perfect way of putting it. So the next one that we're going to look at.
So this one probably really picks up and continues on that theme of being the finished article, because there are a lot of people out there who think I've got to be perfect or damn near perfect before I'm allowed to be confident. So it's almost this holding yourself back and not letting yourself feel confident because you don't feel like you're good enough to be worthy of having that confidence or self-belief yet. So that for me is very closely tied into that desire to be the finished article and that feeling that when I'm there, then I'll deserve to feel confident. But until I get there, I don't really deserve it. And so I'm not allowed to feel confident. I'm not allowed to have that feeling until. So it's putting it out there somewhere in the future of something that I don't yet deserve.
Yeah, and that is just, I think I did a post on LinkedIn about this last week and just saying that confidence is the killer of dreams, or lack of confidence, I should say, is the killer of dreams. Because if we do wait for confidence to show up, who knows when it's going to show up, because we'll just keep doing things or avoiding doing things because we're lacking the confidence. But what we really need to do is just be intentional and implement, take action, and the confidence will eventually show up. You don't even realize sometimes when the confidence does show up, because a lot of the time you're just feeling in that real flow state and everything's going really well and you feel like you're top of the game and all of that kind of stuff. And then you go, oh, so the confidence did show up.
And often as well with this, people compare themselves to others. There's this sense of, when I'm further along, then I'll be allowed to feel confident. And they look at other people who carry themselves with seeming confidence, and they think, when I'm more like that, then I'm allowed to be confident. But until I'm like that, I'm not allowed to be confident. And in reality, everyone has insecurities. We know this from coaching. We get to hear some of those things that people don't vocalize or talk about within their work environment or to colleagues, and sometimes not even to family or friends, because there can be that kind of real deep-seated thing. And I think what's really important is for people to recognize that you don't have to be perfect, because no one ever is. Like you were saying, that's the point at which then, if you feel like you're the finished article, that's the point at which then you're having to protect and polish that image and stop other people from perceiving anything different. And that can be really damaging. So I think it's just really important for people to acknowledge, do you know what? I don't have to wait. I have got value. I do bring a contribution. My skills and experience are, merit that I'm allowed to have confidence in those things. And I'm capable of learning and growing. I'm capable of continuing to develop. And I deserve to feel some confidence. I don't have to wait until some random time in the future when I am perfect. I'm allowed to feel it, even if I don't have absolutely everything all nailed.
Yeah, and I think this next one is going to link in really nicely with all the others. We could go on and on. This could be like a 3-hour podcast, couldn't it? But we're just going to stick to the ones that we decided at the start. So what is the next one?
Yeah, and this is very linked. So the flip side, if you feel like you have to be perfect to deserve confidence, then on the flip side, you can often also feel that failures or mistakes will dent your confidence. And you can be in that place where you're trying to protect yourself from the risk of making mistakes or having anything that anybody might perceive as a failure, which again goes back to that early one about criticism and negative feedback. So this is a situation where people are very risk averse and they hold themselves back, and they're only willing to do things that they know they can be successful at. So if I look back, my perception was that if I failed, that made me a failure. So I associated an external event of me doing something wrong or failing and tied that to my own identity, attached it to my own identity, and made that mean that I would feel like a failure if I failed. And it was only with the support of coaching and my own development journey, that at that point where I was, oh, that was really unhelpful and really did not help me at all in my career to associate those two things so closely. But I think particularly when people are ambitious and have spent the early part of their career getting on because they've done well and things might have come easily to them and they've progressed quite quickly, it's very easy to feel that sense of protection and go, oh, I'm not allowed to make mistakes. That's going to dent my confidence. So yeah, I think there's a lot wrapped up in that one.
Yeah, I mean, we see this often, don't we, in the outplacement workshops that we do, where people are feeling like a failure because they're in that situation of being made redundant, and for whatever reason, the business is restructuring or closing down or whatever's happening. And quite a lot of the time, people will associate that failure with themselves, and they'll be like, I couldn't do enough to keep that business going. But it's not about you. You were never going to hold that whole business up. It's about what you actually delivered and how you delivered against your objectives and all of that kind of stuff as well. So I think people, especially when it comes to redundancy, can really link that to failure as well, where you've got no control over what that business does, and people can hold on to that kind of stuff. So anything to do with feeling like you failed or making a mistake, I think you have to look at it and go, okay, what could I have done differently? And then you'll learn the lessons, and then you'll also realize that actually that wasn't all on me. It could never have been all on me. And even where there are things that you'll have done in your everyday job where you've made a mistake, it's, do you know what? You're human, you're learning. We're not meant to know everything. As soon as we think we know everything, we know nothing. But it is just about learning, isn't it? Like the whole like journey of life, career, everything. It's a whole learning experience, isn't it? And will we ever know everything? Probably not. So what is the next one?
You've set it up perfectly with that last sentence, because the next one is that confidence means having the right answer. So if you feel like you have to know everything and have to have all the answers, then anytime you become aware of things that you don't know or things that you are not sure of, then that makes it harder to maintain that confidence. And the reality is no one knows anything, really. Do you know what I mean? Things are moving. The world is changing so quickly. The whole business landscape changes. So it is impossible for people to know everything. And yet, for so many leaders, they feel like they have to be the one with all the answers. And they feel like if their team know more than them, or there is a situation where a lack of knowledge is exposed within a meeting, project planning, all those kinds of environments, they then feel like, oh, I should have known, even if there was no way that they could have known. And I remember not long ago talking to somebody who'd had a question fired at them. They'd been promoted, first board meeting, and they'd had a question fired at them with real specifics about their budget plans for the next 12 months. And they were on the back foot and really felt like, oh, I'm supposed to know this. And it wasn't until someone else said to them afterwards, that was really unfair. None of us would have known the answer to that question, that gave them that sense of reassurance. And I think when somebody asks a question of you as a leader or manager, you feel like you should know the answer. And it's a ridiculous expectation to set of yourself. It's a really unhealthy expectation to set of yourself. But so often, again, when people have progressed because they've done well, because they have been someone who does know things and who does learn quickly and who does develop, they get very attached to that identity of being the one with all the answers. And as soon as there are gaps in that, then they can feel exposed.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? When people feel exposed, that's where almost the panic sets in, doesn't it? And that's where the lack of confidence can really spiral out of control. So it is just about like still like remaining in control. And where you don't know the answer, just it's absolutely fine to say we can come back to this when we've got more information, or even one of the things I used to do is, okay, tell me more about that. Because sometimes as well, what you'll find in meetings is where people are like trying to almost be top dog and I've got all the information and I'm going to share something that you don't know, because all of this stuff goes on, doesn't it, in meetings. And I used to say to people, oh, great, tell me more about that. Let me hear more about it. And what you find is sometimes they haven't always got any more information. They've just got 1 or 2 points to make. So you can almost maintain that leader position and stay in control of what you're doing just by asking people to share more and to take that on board as well.
I see this a lot with smaller and mid-sized businesses. A lot of my coaching work is with those kind of often founder-led businesses. And often then what happens is that when you're at a senior level, you're part of a relatively small leadership team, and you often have functions reporting to you that you don't have knowledge and full understanding of. And so I see it both ways round, where I see people that are on senior leadership team exec level, where they feel like they should know about all the functional expertise that each member of their team has. And equally, I see then at that next level down, where people are frustrated. So you often see it if, for example, HR reports into finance and you've got an FD and then you've got an HR manager, and HR isn't at that kind of top table, where there's the frustration that HR are not being listened to. But from the top, there's this feeling of, I should have all the answers, I should make all the decisions. And it just causes so much frustration both ways round. It's the same often. Marketing will sit under a commercial function. So you'll often have similar, where you'll have somebody that is, they won't listen, they won't let me work things my way. And it's because people are so tied to feeling like, I want to have input, I want to be involved in this. And as a leader, a big part of it is knowing what you don't know enough about to get involved in, and stop trying to get involved in it. True confidence is when you're aware of your blind spots and you're okay about the things that you don't know, and you find other ways to solve that rather than feeling like you've got to go on a knowledge hunt.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? It's about that level of self-awareness, so that like all that stuff that you've just talked to there, that you're completely aware of that. And the only way that you're going to get to that point of feeling really comfortable in your skin as a leader is to acknowledge all of that stuff. And sometimes it can be really difficult, can't it? But it is about getting that real focus and just making sure that you know exactly who you are, what you're aiming for, and you've got a plan, so that no matter what comes up or who tries to tackle you along the way, like you're like, okay, I'm completely comfortable in who I am and what I do. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, I can take on those new learnings today. I can do all of this other stuff to move forward. So what's the best way to overcome that?
I think it is about just reminding yourself it's impossible to know everything, and that it is not hinging on you to be the one to have all the answers. So there's a saying I often use, which is that as a leader, your job is not to be the most brilliant in the room, it is to facilitate the brilliance of others. And that for me is when you can truly adopt that belief, then you don't feel like confidence means having the right answer, because you recognize that it's not all contingent on you continually building all this knowledge. It's about being able to ensure that what's needed is there and is available.
What an amazing quote. Okay, so our final myth then for today.
So the final one is that confidence depends on individual achievement. There can often be a sense that your individual contribution is what determines your confidence. And in reality, if you are an ambitious manager or leader, then team success is really where that confidence is derived from, because it's not about what you individually contribute. It's about that quote that we've just talked about. It's about facilitating the brilliance of others. It's about ensuring that your team is set up for success. And I think when people can make that mental shift from feeling like I have to achieve, I have to contribute in order to make myself feel confident, to I can take confidence from being the person that leads the team that is able to perform, then that is a real leadership mindset, and it's a pivotal shift for people.
Yeah, and I think that is true, isn't it? Because if you just focus on yourself and you don't think about the team and what the team are doing and how well the team are progressing, yeah, you can still get great results, but you want to be taking the team along with you for the journey, don't you? And I think as a leader, my main priority was always making sure that my team were performing, that they were learning new things, that they were continuously developing like I was. And we did that together, and we moved together, and we drove the business forward together. So I think there's definitely something in that where the confidence will come again from taking the action, supporting the team, and learning and growing together. I think that's the key thing, isn't it?
It really is. It's so easy to have that strive to want to achieve individually. And it's not, that's never important. But I think when you attach your confidence to your own individual contribution, then it often reduces that sense of real team cohesion that you're describing. It reduces the sense of we're in it together. It reduces that feeling of people wanting to go the extra mile for each other and for you. And that really then diminishes the chances that the team will deliver. And as a leader, that's what you're responsible for. You're responsible for making sure that the team delivers. And so that if you can derive your confidence from seeing the team improving and the team delivering ahead of your own individual achievement, then you are likely to then be perceived as a far better leader by others. People can see it a mile off. When you can see somebody who is wanting to be the cleverest, wanting to get the plaudits for themselves, people see it a mile off, and it's a massive turn off. And those people don't get the same in terms of discretionary effort and results from the team pulling together and wanting to be a part of something.
Yeah, and I think we see that in the team development workshops that we do, don't we? We see that when a team comes together, when a team really understands each other, when that leader is leading that team and supporting that team, it really does make all the difference. And, you know, it works for everyone then. It's not just for individuals. And I think if you're thinking that you might need some support around confidence, or you're thinking that your team could use some support to become more effective and work together more closely and really drive the business forward, then do give us a shout, because we'll send you over some information on our team development workshops. And if you're looking for support for yourself, then also get in touch, because we'll be able to tell you what options are available there as well. And as usual, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us, and we will be back next week with another episode.
Exciting news from us. If you're an ambitious leader or manager earning 50k or more and you're ready to take your career to the next level, we have an opportunity for you. Introducing Catalyst Career Club, your secret weapon for unlocking career success. As a member, you'll get access to monthly live training sessions, exclusive job opportunities, and the ability to get personalised advice from us on your toughest career challenges.
We've helped thousands of driven leaders like you secure significant pay rises, land dream roles, and thrive in their careers. And now we want to support you in achieving your most ambitious career goals too. Membership is just $6.99 per month with no contract or tie-in. And as a special bonus for being our podcast listeners, you can use the code podcast at checkout to get your first month for just £1. Head over to pamelalangan.com/Catalyst Career Club to sign up now, and we'll see you inside.